In our last session, we talked about setting a big goal and breaking that into smaller mini goals that were a little bit easier for us to kind of bite into, to work towards, to help us not feel so overwhelmed. So now we're going to break it down even further, and we're going to take one of these mini goals and we are going to make an action plan so that we have a roadmap on how we can be successful. So, we are going to be looking at these individual goals. And for these purposes, we are going to take the mini goal of an 80 to 100% team back handsprings. That's the goal we're going to work off of. A lot of us grew up on SMART goals, so it might be helpful for us to kind of set a timing benchmark for our team. We don't want something that's going to be so close that it feels absolutely impossible and overwhelming. And what's the purpose of even trying? And we also don't want it to be so far away that we feel like we have all of this time, so we don't have to put in the effort right now because we can do it later. So we want to kind of find something in the middle that's motivating, but isn't overwhelming us. So something like that could be we want this goal to hit by regionals. Maybe that's halfway through the season for us before we go to state, or whatever that looks like for your team. So that's a time frame that we can set for ourselves here. Now that we have our goal, we need to figure out what needs to happen for us to achieve this goal. So, this action steps section is just going to be a brainstorm. Anything and everything, good ideas, bad ideas, weird ideas, everything that you can think of is going to go in this section, and we're going to tease it out later. But we want to make sure that our creativity is flowing first, because sometimes we have some good ideas that are just buried behind the bad ones. But if we stop thinking at the bad ones and we close ourselves off, sometimes we never get to those good ones. So we're going to write down anything and everything that comes to us. Some of these action steps might be setting athlete individual goals, talking with each athlete individually and figuring out where they are. What can they be working on? Maybe we are focused on dedicating time at practice to working on those back handsprings. It's important that we're working on it as a team, that you are showing your team that this is a goal for all of us, not just as individuals, but as a team. Maybe some of that is spelled drilling back handspring timing, because it's not just about having the skill, it's about making it look good as well. Maybe we really break it down and we have some stations and we really focus on doing some back handspring drills to figure out the shaping, the strength, the power, everything we need for those back handsprings to be successful. In that same vein, maybe we have specific conditioning that we are working on in order to build the strength for our back handsprings and the power and the confidence. And at the end of the day, maybe as something as a good old school incentive is going to help motivate our team to be working on those goals independently and together in order to achieve that reward, that external reward on top of the internal one of achieving that skill. So, these are some action steps that we can take. Now we need to take these steps, these things that we need to do, and we need to make a plan. How are we going to incorporate these things into our practice, into our daily lives, our weekly lives? How are our athletes going to utilize this to be successful, and how are we going to utilize it to help them be successful? So, something that we could do is setting an at home conditioning and drill plan for each of our athletes. Make it so that not only are they working on skills at practice, but they're also taking responsibility and working at things at home. We can create incentives for those athletes that are doing the work. That is extra work we are asking them to do. We want them to feel rewarded for that. Maybe we are checking in with our athletes twice a month to make sure that they are working on things. If there's any barriers, we can help them overcome that. And just keeping it top of mind that this is something that is important and we're not pushing it to the side. In that same vein of accountability, maybe we are assigning accountability buddies. Maybe it's as simple as athletes checking in with their captains to let them know that they've done the work. Maybe it is partnering her up, bigs and littles, little families, groups of 3 or 4 that check in with each other on a regular basis or send videos of their conditioning to each other to keep everybody motivated and moving on the same track. Maybe something that we can do as practice is that we can commit to dedicating 10 minutes of practice to warming up our back handsprings. Make this a standard practice so that athletes begin to understand that when we are warming up, we will be throwing back handsprings. And if I do not have my back handspring, then I am not able to warm that up. So they are encouraged, kind of in a semblance of positive peer pressure, to want to get the skill so that they can participate in that part of practice. We're just setting that standard up front as it is. Maybe during practice, we are also working on drilling the timing of our standing and running back handsprings. Same thing, setting that standard that we are warming that up and we are drilling it. It is not going away. So if you do not have it, then you need to be working on it so that you can have it and participate in that section of practice. Maybe once per week, you are setting up stations to work on improving those back handsprings and to help those athletes get the back handsprings that maybe don't quite have them yet. It's not enough to just set the standard like I was talking about just a few seconds ago and leaving it at that and making it the athlete's entire responsibility, but it's our responsibility also to encourage them, guide them, and give them the space to grow. And by creating that space, it is a positive peer pressure that is going into the standard that you're setting at practice. And then circling around again, coming back to that last action step that we thought about, creating incentives for those goals reached. Maybe that looks like having a celebrity themed practice or a party. Once we have reached the goal, we want to make sure that we're celebrating that. We've set the standard, we've put in the work, we've encouraged the athletes. They've worked hard, you've worked hard. It's time to have a little bit of fun to celebrate and reward all of that hard work, planning, dedication. And so, coming up with a themed practice or a pizza party or something simple and fun to provide that external motivation can really help keep morale up. It's important that we do this step for all 4 of our mini goals. We need to have a plan for each one, or it's something that we are not going to stick to. So we want to make sure that we have it all written down. It is planned out. It is going in our calendar. It is going on our practice plans. We are writing it down. We are looking at it before we plan for practice every day, every week, every month, whatever your schedule is that works for you. And we are designing our practices based off of the plans that we've put in place. Once we deviate from these plans, our goals become lost. And it's usually really hard to get back on the bike to restart those goals where we left off. Now, there are some exceptions to that, of course. We maybe have a great plan to be working on team back handsprings during practice, but Susie fell out of her stunt warm up and has a concussion, and now we need to rework the routine because we have a competition in 2 days. Obviously, our back handspring plan might not be as full as it normally is because we need that time to rework. Or maybe we're able to still keep this a priority and we just shorten it. We keep the back handspring warm up, but we don't worry about the timing drills or working on our stations that week. But we're still planning on working on something to help move that progress and that needle forward towards our goal, even within the chaos that is a cheerleading season, because there will always be things that pop up that we have to adjust for. But having our plan written down and being able to maybe make those identifications of what can I drop today and what do I absolutely have to keep us moving forward, and how am I going to make up for this when this season is over? And by this season, I mean this phase of our season where maybe we have that injured athlete, where that athlete is back on the mat, or after this competition is done and we are back to practicing as usual. How am I going to reintegrate our plan as soon as possible? Don't leave it for future you. As soon as you know that there's a deviation of the plan, make that plan now. And you have the written plan right here to guide you so that there is no guessing, there is no mental gymnastics. It is all right there. You have set yourself up by doing all of this to be successful, not only by strategizing at the beginning of the season, but to handle whatever chaos comes your way so that you can keep moving towards your goals and you can look back at the end of the season and clearly be able to identify where your team's progress was. There is no guessing of like, well, this looks a little bit better, that's cleaner, I like the way this is. No, you have numbers. You have clear indicators of what went well. And for some programs, school programs, maybe this is really helpful when talking to our athletic directors or our board for funding or support. For all-star rec programs, maybe this is really important for us to know how we can continue to improve our program, grow our program, how to market our program. In all of that success and all of that positive outcome, outside of even the big goal that we've accomplished at this point, is all easily achievable if we sit down and take a little bit of time and put in a little bit of effort to make this kind of plan early in the season. Now, I've mentioned it a couple times, but having your goals, your steps, your plan in place and on paper is the first step. But in the next session, we're going to talk about how we can take this plan and put it into action when we are creating our plan for practice. So, for each session of practice, how we can map that out using this as a guide to lead us through an efficient and effective practice each and every time.